good evening, good afternoon, and especially to all my Australians out there, good bloody morning, mate. My name's Tommo, and welcome to my post-race report, post-race Chinwag for the 2024 Hungarian Grand Prix. Almost called it the Belgian Grand Prix for some reason. Thank you all for joining me wherever you are in the world. This is 11:15 p.m. UK time, nice and late. In part because I wanted to do it late. Sometimes I do these late on a Sunday night. Sometimes I do them on a Monday afternoon. But I thought just for you Australians, given the boy Oscar made it 7 winners in 13 races, I thought we'd do this one just for you, my lovely Australians. Anyone from Australia, let me know in the chat where in Australia you are from. I think it's like 9:15 in the morning, Melbourne, Sydney time. Might be a bit early for you lot in Perth, perhaps, but of course, Oscar from Melbourne, Melbourne's finest, delivered the win in interesting circumstances. We will get into it because it was for a race that, you know what, was we'll get into a race rating, won't we? There was a lot going on, but it was mainly thanks to the team radios. Back in an era when we wouldn't have heard team radios, which wasn't crazy long ago, this race would have looked very different to how it has looked. Certainly from an entertainment point of view. Anyway, welcome Simon, Road Rage, Rafi, Luke, Lucky, Corey, Stephen, Tim, Denwolol, Jacob, Jack, Harry, Josh, Typhoon, Matthew, Thomas, Scotty, Professor Z, Simbrew, Lucas, Dan, and all the rest. Thank you to everyone who's watching audio only, listening, should I say, audio only, just for your lugs, right? You can do that. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff, okay? However you want to consume these, consume at your will. I'll make sure to get this uploaded before I go to bed, once this is wrapped, because we could be here for a while. We'll see. I'm going to try and get a video on a certain McLaren bit of festivities tomorrow, but we're going to talk plenty about it just for this live stream as well. Right. Lovely jubbly, happy days, shrimp on the barbie. First of all, people, can you let me know your race rating out of 10, okay, for this year's Hungarian Grand Prix? Give me some numbers, live chat, and then we'll do a little poll, and we'll try and get a rough idea of your rating. Okay, so race rating out of 10. And again, look, it's up to you essentially what you wanna give it. There's no right or wrong answer. And wow, the range is pretty crazy that I'm seeing. So I think I'm gonna go 4 or lower, 5, a 6, or a 7 or higher. Because look, it really does depend on what you're looking for from a Formula 1 race. And again, 5, I would say a bang average race, okay? Not an exceptional one, not a stinker. Kind of somewhere in the middle. And there's lots of different... Am I back? I think I'm back. Whether your internet briefly goes down and then all of a sudden we're back and we're cooking, you know? I mean, there's lots of different ways you can look at a race. There's lots of different ways you can look at a stream. Maybe like the stream. I think if you like the stream, my internet won't go down again. That's my theory. Anyway, so make sure you like the stream if you're here live on YouTube, okay? Right, I've chucked the poll out. Let's get race rating out of 10. 5% of you are 4 or lower, 14% of 5, 37% of you are 6, 45% of you are 7 or higher. Now, I did a tweet actually. This was one of those races where F1 Twitter was absolutely cooking. Okay, it was great fun overall. Twitter's can be a difficult place, as we all know. And your rating is probably averaging out. Well, actually, 7 or higher is getting the biggest vote, 44% of the vote. So you're pretty, at least a 7. I'd probably say you're averaging out. You know what? Like, I don't know. Watching the race, as it went through, of course you've got McLaren fighting at the front. I say fighting, leading the race. Okay, obviously Oscar took position. You had a kind of interesting lap 1 with positions changing. Oscar taking the lead, of course. But all in all, the race itself, a lot of DRS trains. Daniel found himself on the wrong end thanks to a bit of a questionable decision strategy-wise by Racing Bulls. Alonso was holding up a lot of people, as well as he does, the master of the dark arts. And generally speaking, we weren't really getting, and when we were getting wheel-to-wheel stuff, it wasn't really hitting. So as much as there was a lot of drama, as much as the festivities, again, if this was a different generation, we never would have heard. If we didn't have radio made this race, okay? But ultimately, I'm rating a race, not the radio messages. So I'm giving it a 5 out of 10. It actually wasn't that great a race. As a race, it was dramatic, granted. Radio, 10 out of 10. But it's not radio rating, it's race rating. And for me, the actual race wasn't that great. It wasn't terrible. But I think a 5 is completely fair. And actually, without the radio stuff, honestly, without Max is quite entertaining, let's be real. Radio blow-ups and obviously the McLaren stuff. It's probably like a 3, maybe a 4 out of 10. And the radio actually, for me, bumps it up to a 5. So, but look, we all look for different things from a race, okay? Many of you have been, it's been inflated by the drama. And you know what? I'm here for the drama as much as the next person, okay? And if you're not, you're lying, all right? Everyone enjoys the drama, but there is a limit to how much drama can actually add to what was a pretty dull race. Tyre management, again, everyone's saving. A lot of DRS trains. Not much wheel-to-wheel action apart from a certain Dutchman clashing with a certain Englishman once again. But again, we'll get into that. So for me, it's a 5 out of 10. As much as I was very chuffed that the race winner was a young Australian by the name of Oscar Piastri, because I think this has been long deserved for him. Yeah, for me it's a 5. Thank you, Eric, by the way, for the 5 Canadian. Much appreciated. Very kind of you. But yeah, that's me. Right. Anyway, I think I've explained my point well enough. Each their own. Right. Race result. Bosh. How did this Hungarian Grand Prix pan out for everybody? Well, of course, Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris took the 1-2. McLaren's second 1-2. Say second 1-2. They've got a lot of 1-2s, but their last 1-2 was 21, of course, with Ricciardo winning in Monza ahead of Lando. And then before that, it was Canada 2010, I want to say, with Jensen and Lewis. So, yeah, it's not been very often. Obviously, in their history, many a 1-2. But in recent history, not so much. Or was it 2012? Was it 2012 or 2010? Either way. Yeah, it would have been 2012. Yeah, no, sorry. You're correct, chat. You're correct, Charmander. It was 2012. I'm going to take your word for it anyway. Lewis Hamilton, talking of it, P3. Held on in terms of, I think it was a very good race from Lewis, actually. Very good drive from him. Charles Leclerc P4, Max Verstappen P5. Maybe should have been P3. And again, we'll get into that. Certainly on pace should have been P3. Carlos Sainz P6. Checo P7. Actually, got to say, as much as it was his fault, firmly, of course, on Saturday for starting P8. What was it? P16, wasn't it, where he started? Recovered to P7, which was probably the maximum you could have really expected from Checo. So, fair play. George Russell P8 with fastest lap. Yuki Tsunoda P9 doing a one-stop, making it work. Great drive from him. And then Lance Stroll P10. Apparently, Fernando and Lance swapped positions because Lance was going to go after Tsunoda. He couldn't get Tsunoda, but then they didn't revert the positions. Make of that what you will. Alonso 7. Ricciardo... Alonso 7? Alonso 11? Oh, that's too late for me. Ricciardo P12, which, again, maybe could and should have been different if Racing Bulls hadn't clanged on the old strategy. Hulkenberg 13. He was getting eaten up, wasn't he? He was falling back down the field. Albon 14. Wasn't too happy with his team. Magnussen 15. Bottas 16. Sargent 17. Ocon 18. Joe 19. And Pierre Gasly DNF once again. Another issue for old Pierre. Oh dear. That extension's... Alpine, man. Alpine are... like Jekyll and Hyde. But it's... Wait, what's the bad... Who's the evil side? Jekyll or Hyde? I think it's Hyde, isn't it? Alpine are mainly Hyde. rather than Jekyll. I don't know where I'm going with this. Thank you, Daniel, by the way, for the super chat. Max behaving kindergarten again. Makes everyone else look so professional. He needs to take responsibility for once in his life. Crash tapping his back. Wow. No surprise, Daniel. That is British pounds with the dono. I'm joking. Because, of course, you can't criticise... You can only criticise Max Verstappen if you're British because of British bias. Remember that. Okay? Remember that. Key point. And I am British, so... All of my criticisms that are upcoming of Max Verstappen is purely because of British bias and not because of objective analysis. Just to clear that up before we carry on. Thank you, Daniel. Much appreciated. Much appreciated as per. But yeah, this is how the race finished. And well, the driver standings, in terms of positionally, the only change here is Checo has dropped from P6 to P7. Now 1 point behind Lewis Hamilton. Still 8 points ahead of George Russell. So, I mean, will Perez be P8 after Spa? I mean, it's possible. Obviously, Russell did all the damage to his race in qualifying. And looking at where Lewis finished, I think George, butterfly effect in it, would have changed the whole outcome of everything. Probably McLaren wouldn't have had all the worry. If George had been there, then the butterfly effect of that would have probably meant that there wasn't this issue. I don't call it an issue for McLaren at the end. Self-inflicted PR problem for McLaren. But there you go. Yeah, I know Bottas is last. It's crazy, isn't it? Doesn't deserve to be last, but he is stone dead last as it stands. In terms of positionally, though, everyone else remains unchanged. Max Verstappen's lead does not gain. It shrinks to 76 points. Would have been 69 if Lando had stayed in first. But then again, you know, when I made my video saying that there is actually a championship fight after 7 races, and Leclerc was about 38 points behind Max. The top comment was that, with over 1,000 likes, was that saying there's actually a title fight is far-fetched. So surely, whether it's 76 or 69 points, there's still not a title fight, right? In the Drivers' Championship, right? Well, 11 races. That's 11 times 25, plus sprint, 3 sprints still to go, and some fastest lap points. It's a long shot, but who knows? And Piastri just 5 points beyond Carlos Sainz now. After a very difficult, challenging start to the season for Oscar, he's pretty close to not just Carlos, but what? He's 13 off of Charles Leclerc as well. So the Piastri momentum is cooking somewhat. Time will tell. But yeah, otherwise, no big changes there. Obviously, Yuki got a point on the board. 2 points on the board, should I say, for P9. But we'll see how it pans out. 11 to go. Still plenty of points on offer. And as for the team standings, I thought I'd make the numbers a bit bigger so it's a bit easier to read. Red Bull still... Wait, what? No. You've not seen that. I forgot to update the team standings graphic. Okay, well, you know what? We'll do this together. So... all the time I have to make a mistake, as Fernando Alonso would say, okay? Because this is a Tommo stream, right? And this is what we do. I think of it as endearing, you know? It'd be like Sky Sports couldn't get away with this level of incompetence, but I can, right? Right? Surely I can. So what I'm just going to fill. And by saying that Red Bull have 389 points right now. And McLaren have moved up officially to, which means I have to change colours, which is going to make this take a little bit longer, which is fantastic. McLaren have moved up to P2 in the Constructor standings. 338 points to their name. Ferrari, 322. It's mad it's actually taken this long for McLaren to catch Ferrari up. But again, you know, that early season bias You know, whether you win in Bahrain or in Abu Dhabi, it's still 25 points for a win, +1 if you get fastest lap. I mean, obviously lower down the field. I don't have to worry about changing too many numbers. Sauber are still bottom. Williams are still on 4 points. Alpine still on 9. Haas still on 27. Racing Bulls now on 33. Well done, Cook. Mercedes 241. Ferrari 322. So now I've just got to change the colours, and then we will cook. And again, look, it's something, isn't it? A constructors battle is something. It's not the thing that we all, wake up in the morning and like, oh, you know what? I can't wait to see, because they're going to earn more money and they're going to have 5% less ATR, or hook it into my veins. Like, it's not changing the world, is it? Right? The teams can claim. Yeah, and of course, a bit more money, bit more cash in the bank. Obviously, a bit less ATR, but you think that extra bit of money is probably it outweighs the hit on the ATR. Okay, I would say, but at the end of the day, money's money. Money talks in Formula One, just like it does in most of our lives. And there we go. Let's see, it's like nothing happened. Seamless team standings, correct. Probably I probably made a mistake in these as well. And listen, 51 points between McLaren and Red Bull as things are going with Checo. It's not looking good, Brev. Especially as Lando and Oscar are very close. And will this be the last 1-2 for McLaren this season? Probably not. Not the way things are going anyway, especially as that Red Bull upgrade. Well, at least it was on Max's car, and Checo seemed to have actually the better race. Yeah, I know. Anyway, so predictions time. Should we talk predictions? Because I made some on Thursday or Wednesday, whenever I did the pre-race, and so did you. And look, you come to me and to my content for an opinion. And sometimes, like holes in bottoms, I'm going to say the other way of saying it because, I like to be PG. We all have them. And sometimes what comes out of them can be, concerning. And what came out of mine, in terms of my opinion anyway, not the other thing, was somewhat concerning. Because, George Russell race win, sorted out on Saturday. That wasn't going to happen. Banger drive Valtteri Bottas. I mean, the Sauber doesn't help. No. Clanger drive Charles Leclerc. No, he actually drove a pretty good race, actually. His pace was pretty good. Why am I so red? I say that to myself every day, Salami. Banger drive team, Sauber. Absolutely not. Clanger team Ferrari. Yeah. So, look, I've got... yours were better. Actually, a lot better. Race win Max, no. But other than that, Banger drive Oscar. Well, he's definitely up there, isn't he? Clanger drive Checo. It was a good drive on Sunday, but he shouldn't have been there. So he's got to be up there in the conversation. Banger team Mercedes. Lewis was good. They did have their fair share of responsibility in why George went out in Q1. So, yeah. And then Clanger team Sauber. I mean, there were other worse teams, more sus teams than Sauber this weekend. So you scored like 3 out of 5. The yellow's like half a point. I scored nil point. Moving on. Okay. Well done. I hope you're happy. Okay. I always say this, but not next weekend. You're going down, right? For Spa, trust me. I'm coming for you. Right. Bosch. Bangers and clangers. this weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix. Looking over the course of the weekend, who delivered best? Now, there's a few drivers in contention here. I think obviously Yuki Tsunoda did that one stop, made that one stop work, managed his tyres like an absolute god, and finished best of the rest. Lewis Hamilton, decent job in qualifying. I think managed the race exceptionally well, especially being on the hards at the end where everyone else was on the mediums. And I think defended against Max very well. And fortunately for him, when there was contact, it was Max who bore the brunt of the outcome, and Lewis could carry on fine. And then, of course, Oscar, just short of P1 in qualifying by like 22 thousandths of a second or whatever it was. And in the race, jumped Lando at the start, held on, very consistent. He made a mistake, didn't he? He kind of got wobbed on the wheel through the quick S's. Lost a bit of time, but then managed to kind of eke that gap out again. But then obviously at the end, Lando was kind of pulling away from him. For me, and you know what, like, we talk on this channel quite a lot about, as a person of Britishness, the accusation of British bias will always be a fundamental part of what we do here, okay? Because, And to be honest, I'm not doing myself any favours here because, well, my banger drive is Lewis Hamilton and my clanger is Max Verstappen. Sorry, I'm just calling it as I see it, okay? So for me, I think Lewis, his race was exceptional. I think he defended well against Max. And Max was on an absolute tear-up. Now, was it because he was sim racing till 3 a.m. like Crofty was? How many times did Crofty actually say that on the comms? If you were listening to the Crofty comms, how many times did he blame Max's clanger drive, which I think he had uncharacteristic stinker? How many times did Crofty blame it on iRacing? I'm assuming it was iRacing he was on. I don't even know what he was. He's usually on iRacing, isn't he, Max? So, yeah, I think Lewis delivered an exceptional and defended really well against Max. Max went wide at the start, gained positions off track, had to give the position back, of course, obviously, rightly so. Going for the attack on Lewis, went wide messed that one up. Then obviously the actual move on Lewis, he was at least predominantly at fault. No question, he's out of control of his car. It's his responsibility to get that car stopped. Lewis, he didn't move under braking. Like he broke in a straight line. He's turning into the corner. I can kind of understand why the stewards didn't give a penalty because they were like, oh, Lewis could have done more to get out of the way. You could have said that about Lando. He could have gone onto the curb, but he didn't. And there was contact, and in this instance, Lewis he was turning into the corner. Max was flying in. It's really funny, like, on reflection, the amount of people criticising Lando for doing crazy dive bombs, and then Max does that. When he's clearly, like, his head was gone. The head loss, that's like head loss we've not seen for a long time from Max Verstappen. He's always, he's very passionate on the radio. Him and GP, again, he's not talking. They have this kind of relationship. It's like a brotherly kind of thing. But this level of head loss, I said it on Twitter. I was like, I think at that extreme, at that extent, I think it was inhibiting Max's performance. He's never going to say it, but just my opinion, seeing what is there, him going and then going for a move like that and it resulting in contact, there is no way those things are not related. So yeah, clanger drive for Max Verstappen, banger for Lewis Hamilton. British bias allegations aren't going anywhere, but you know what? I can only be honest, all right? I can only be honest. Thank you, Zach, by the way, for the super chat. I made an 800 plus bet on Piastri, so it's the best win of all time for me. Wow. Zach, I bet you must have been absolutely, like, your bottom must have been like squirming like that, right? You put 800, and I'm guessing that's dollars, that's USD. You put 800 on Piastri to win, and when Lando was like, no, I don't know, should I give the place back? You must have been like, oh, I can't imagine the state of you in that moment, Zach. I can't imagine the state. But well done on your winnings. And thank you for the super chat. Very kind. Thank you, Wingcap, as well. I'd like to register my complaint at Crofty for whinging about a grown man's bedtime, talking like he doesn't understand sim racing, which I guess he does. Yeah, Crofty was on a questionable one for sure. It was like when he mentioned it like twice, even like the third time, I was like, all right, that's enough. But he just kept going on about it. Jeez. Did you not know that Max was Max up till 3 a.m. sim racing? No idea, Benteke. Had no idea. Anyway, didn't know you knew sign language. I mean, if that was correct, then I just, instincts. Right. Banger team. Now, banger team is tough because, like, no one really stood out. Because on the face of it, you're like, well, of course, McLaren won too. But somehow, Aldas did a good tweet. It's like, you've managed to get a 1-2, but yet also fumble a 1-2. Like, that is not something we see often. Exceptional from McLaren. Given what they did and the way they managed it was so absolute, like, I can't give it to McLaren. Okay? Personally. I'm not going to give it to McLaren. The only team I can look at, and even though their pace wasn't as good as it should be, I think they just executed their race at the maximum. And one of their drivers had a bit of a bad start. And maybe if there was a certain penalty, would have actually got a position higher. I'm gonna say Ferrari, but even then, like, their pace wasn't great. Leclerc was keeping them honest, so I think Leclerc actually was doing a good job, and that car was a bit more drivable. Yes, it wasn't on the podium, and it's a Ferrari, but like, I think race execution, they were spot on. Qualifying, no real issues, just a bit slow. But I think race executionally, they were the best team. So I'm giving it Ferrari. And then Clanger team, I mean, it's Alpine. It's Alpine. They completely messed up qualifying. They were the only team to, we don't need to go out again at the end. Is it drying? Nah, I'm sure it won't dry. Nah, it's not like it's really hot, so the track's just going to get better and quicker. Now, we'll just don't worry about it. It's fine. L, starting at the back. Gasly takes new components again, so does pit lane start again, like Silverstone, and then breaks down again. I mean, at least he did some of the race this time. Yeah. So, I mean, it's Alpine. It's Alpine easy. Of course it is. And thank you, Michael, by the way, for the super chat. I don't know who's angry about the conceding the position, Lando Norris or Joe Biden. Yes. Yeah, it turns out it's the day of conceding position. But, well, yeah, you know what? I think both were the correct decision. I think both concessions, but that's about as political as I'm going to get on this channel. So. I endorse both concessions. Is that even the correct word? Both conceded. I agree with both. Anyway, moving on. So those are my bangers and clangers for the 2024 Hungarian Grand Prix. But what about yours? Well, 2,565 of you voted. Thank you for voting again. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube so you can see my community posts when I post these polls to get involved. Also follow me on Twitter at TOMMO'F1. Twitter, Tommo, even though it's X, but no one calls it that. Get involved. Thank you for voting if you did. And Joe to replace Logan. Mid-season swap. Oh, dear. Shout out Kimi Antonelli, by the way. Great win in the feature race in F2. Would he replace Logan mid-season? I don't think so. Your banger drive for the 2024 Hungarian Grand Prix is Oscar Piastri. 45% of the vote. Lewis Hamilton, 27% of the vote. Yuki Tsunoda, 9%. Lando Norris, 8% of the vote. No big kind of surprises there. I'd actually probably put Leclerc ahead of Norris. I think my fourth driver, I think Hamilton, Piastri, Tsunoda, fair. I would have probably put Leclerc in over Norris for me. Just because Lando conceded position at the start. But he put it on pole, so he did have a good weekend. So, Oscar's your banger drive. Your clanger drive, Max Verstappen, 70% of the vote as well. No chill. Again, exclusively British or British bias against the Dutch. Because it's clearly the only reason that Max got 70% of the vote here. And, oh, we have fun, don't we? 7% Zhou Guanyu, 4% Sergio Perez, 3% Fernando Alonso. Well, again, Perez, yeah, but Pondon Perez did the damage on Saturday, didn't he? So again, we're given this, obviously qualifying isn't where points are won, but you got to say, you look at Georgia, you look at Sergio around a track like Hungary, a bad qualifying performance hurts you more in the race. So yes, that should definitely be taken into account when you're voting banger, clanger. And around a track like the Hungarian, you can't afford to smash it into the wall in Q1. I mean, Yuki did it, but he did it in Q3. So it was fine. And he ended up actually having a really good weekend. Even though he smashed it into the wall. And that was a really sketchy one as well. When he caught that air, it was bit yikes. All right. Banger, Oscar. Clanger, Max. Team banger is... Well, it's both McLaren. 67% of you voted banger team McLaren. 43% of you voted clanger team McLaren. They win both. And rightly so. Okay? I had to give it Alpine clanger. I gave it Ferrari banger because I couldn't. But you've gone McLaren for both, which is the first time that's ever happened, I think. I don't think I've ever seen that on a stream. But yeah, it somehow works. And I'm somehow not, even though Alpine objectively were the worst team this weekend, I'm not disappointed in you at all. So banger team was McLaren, followed by Ferrari, Mercedes, and Racing Bulls. Those 3% were certainly not Daniel Ricciardo fans. And then clanger team, 27% Alpine, 17% Red Bull, 5% Sauber. But again, McLaren took the dub with 43% of the vote. So well done, WinCap. Indeed, you understood the assignment. Well done, everyone. Well done. Give yourselves a collective pat on the back. Okay. Very, very impressive. Oh, to put that all together. Thank you, Takura, by the way, for the super chat. Up the Aussies as well. British bias doesn't give the Aussie banger drive. Probably still bitter about the Ashes. Oh, I wish I cared about cricket to go. I actually live pretty close to a cricket ground. There you go. Fun fact. Pretty close. Not that close. Close enough that I can hear when there's a game on and it gets a bit exciting and dicey, which, I mean, cricket is it's not a very exciting, dicey sport, is it? But on the odd occasion it gets it. I can hear it sometimes through the windows. There you go. I'm not telling you where. Anyway, so those are your bangers and clangers. Oscar, Max, McLaren, and mine, Lewis, Max, Ferrari, Alpine. So there you go. Bosh. Right. Lovely, jubbly. Let's go team by team then, shall we? Let's go through all the teams. And also, thank you, AFL God, for the super chat. Aussies here from Adelaide. Never, I've been to Australia a few times, never to Adelaide. And, well, maybe there will be an Australian in the Alpine seat next year alongside Pierre Gasly in the form of Jack Doohan. Maybe not. But yeah, Alpine, smelly, Smelly weekend once again. Nothing really. I've already kind of said my piece on Alpine. They messed up qualifying for both drivers. Gasly broke down again. Ocon was able to make no progress in the race. And L. The L in Alpine was strong this weekend. Aston Martin, you know what? In qualifying, it looked a bit better, didn't it? It looked like some kind of improvement. Brought a good amount of upgrades this weekend. And playing the team game with Stroll and Alonso. And they probably did kind of maximise the performance, the potential that was on the table. Obviously, both finished behind Yuki Tsunoda. But there was a lot of DRS trains. Fernando was playing some games. Also, yeah, there was something went on with Fernando, didn't it, in quali? Because so Fernando wasn't happy that they dropped the red flag so quickly after Yuki crashed. However, my understanding is because Yuki's crash was big enough to trip certain sensors, it meant the medical car had to go out, which meant that the red flag was it's just kind of written into the rules. And unfortunately for Fernando, his lap was cut short or whatever in qualifying. So he wasn't happy about that. But then also, and this was a clang from the FIA, so when Fernando came in, I think there were some other drivers affected as well. But basically, the FIA kind of scrutineering people thought the session was done, even though there was still 2.5 minutes left. So Fernando had to pull in and then get out of his car. And then there was all this kind of, and there's a video of Fernando getting proper irate about it and throwing his suit. And yeah, it was, Stroll as well was affected. It was, it was a messy one. Fernando's reaction didn't look great. I mean, the full context, he wasn't happy. Hard to see the full context from the video, but yeah, it's not good. It's not good from that point of view. Maybe a bit of a step forward for Aston Martin in performance, but ultimately they're still a way off where, I mean, you look at where McLaren are now, and it's really stifled momentum from Aston Martin. A really frustrating team to watch right now. Really frustrating. Thank you, Zach, again for the super chat, by the way. So yeah, it's tough to really, again, obviously the whole position swap as well, Stroll and Alonso, but I mean, it feels like Fernando's already starting to get a bit frustrated with this team, and I get it, I understand. Again, you look at the trajectory of these other teams, and who knows, maybe 2025 will give them a bit more. But it's tough. Ferrari, again, I think operationally, they were probably the best, that they didn't mess anything up. They were just a bit slow compared to, the heights we were expecting. Charles held on well. Carlos had a difficult start. Lost position even though he out-qualified Charles, but in the race Charles was able to get ahead and kind of stay ahead, and he was able to follow Lewis and Max in that early stint fairly closely, finished ahead of Max obviously in the end with his issues. But yeah, it's the floor changes seem to make the car more drivable but not necessarily any quicker. So Ferrari did, Charles was asking for plan C at some point, wasn't he? They didn't do anything crazy with strategy. They just weren't really fast enough. But not much more to say, really. I don't think their drivers did too much wrong. I think Carlos post-race was I'm not sure if it was a me problem with the start or something, something mechanical, something in the electronics of the car that made him bog down a bit on the start. But yeah, otherwise I think they did about as well as they could have realistically expected. Haas, bit slow. K-Mag made really good progress at the start. Got up to P10, but then fell back P15 in the end for him. Hulkenberg, wasn't really able to make any progress in the race as well. Found it was P13 in the end for him. So, not got much more to say about Haas. It was a bit of by their recent standards, it was actually a bit of a bad weekend for them. A bit disappointing. No massive howlers that I've heard about or seen, but it was just a bit, game's the game. Can't win them all. well, not that you're going to win any in the house. That'd be great for Nico. P6 is like a win for them, surely. I'm going to save McLaren because that's like the big one. Let's go for the other like really like nothing team. So Williams, yeah, obviously Alex was frustrated because he was meant to be on a 2-stop. Then they changed to a 3-stop, but then he burnt through his tyres, and then they asked him to go back onto a 2-stop. So he was like, oh well, I've already rinsed my tyres, and he didn't get the jump. He tried to undercut Fernando, couldn't, and then he was like post race. He was like, that kind of ruined my race, and I was nowhere. Logan, I'm not really sure what happened because Logan had a decent qualifying, got into Q2, not a mile off Alex at all, but Logan just kind of, yeah, I mean he finished right down the order. Really, to be honest, I don't really know what happened with Logan's race. I've not really got much to say on that. I mean, there was a lot of other stuff going on. Yeah, not ideal. So, yeah, not last. I guess that's the best thing to. Yeah, it's a bad start for Logan. Yeah, that seems to have done the damage for him, unfortunately. That's the thing. That even when he delivers in qualifying, there's always something with Logan, and it's frustrating. But you know, he's over a year and a half now into his F1 time in F1. Oscar Piastri's winning a race, and Logan's still making mistakes. So, but yeah, he did out qualify Checo again technically. Sauber, I have nothing to say about Sauber. Again, nothing. I might as well just get rid of this slide. I have nothing to say about this team so often. Honked again. Next. Red Bull. Red Bull, so obviously Checo had... There's a bit more to talk about Red Bull. Checo had the old car. And actually, in the race, I mean, Max was complaining so much about the balance and the brakes and the feel of this new upgrade without the big shoulders that you can definitely argue if they'd have kept, at least for this Grand Prix, you know, the car that Max knows, I think he would have performed better. I don't think it's a coincidence that, you know, they bring this huge, and it's a very visual upgrade. You know, there will be floor changes that actually make more of a difference, but for what we can see, this visual upgrade's huge, right? And it's meant to be that, you know, this upgrade is more for, think of it as an upgrade, think of it more as a alternative spec. So what Max was running, the idea for Red Bull more long term is that the spec that Max is running, you'll use at more high downforce tracks. And then the spec that Checo was running, the older spec, will be used for the like quicker tracks, right? The less downforce specific tracks. So that's the kind of idea that Red Bull were going in to this Grand Prix with. So that's right. We only have enough parts to put it on Max's car. This is meant to be the alternative spec rather than an upgrade as such for high downforce tracks. Chuck it on Max's car. Max was really struggling throughout, messing around with brake balance. You know, wasn't on the nose like he likes it. A lot of understeer. And, you know, the team asked, you know, if he wanted to dial out some wing, and he was like, dial in some wing, sorry. And he was like, I'd love to, but I'm just going to get eaten up. So it had to have more understeer. It was more understeer focused than he wanted it to be. That's an issue. That's a problem. That's a concern because Red Bull were expecting good things and it doesn't seem to have delivered. Now, obviously, is this a matter of just dialing this in? This, again, I don't want to call it an upgrade, this alternative spec, just giving it a bit more time for them to dial in how this alternative spec changes the car and getting it to a, you know, it didn't feel like all weekend that Max found a setup, should I say, that worked with this new thing. And again, you know, we've seen McLaren coming in, bring upgrades, and it's immediately ticked up performance. We've seen other teams, plenty of other teams, bring upgrades, and it almost worsens performance. And it felt like that on the day because Max couldn't be confident and comfortable in the car. But also, you know, if Max gets that move done on Lewis first time out, I think that gap to the McLarens is not crazy. So, as much as there was a lot of back and forth between Max and GP, and Max was very, very wound up, realistically, they weren't a mile off. He was still the second quickest car, he should have finished third. Like, in terms of on pace, he should have been third for sure. So it's not like crazy apocalyptic end of the world, but it's not ideal. And obviously, look, the back and forth with Max and GP. Now, obviously, I've seen there's a lot of talk around that and how it all went down, and Max was very wound up, and GP was annoyed, and they were kind of sassing each other. Well, GP was sassing, Max was fuming, and he was saying like, "Oh, it's childish" at the end. Look, I think Max and GP, as human beings, right, they understand each other better than any of us understand either of them, right? They are so close. They've been working together since, 2016, when Max jumped into that Red Bull. And you say GP didn't help, but I mean, this is how GP knows Max and how to handle Max, and to not just let him walk all over. I don't think any approach in that situation, like, Max's head was gone. It was. Like, the way he was getting so irate on the radio, I don't think there was anything that GP could have said. And I think GP was just handling it in the way that he knows how to typically handle Max. And Max was just so head loss that he wasn't having any of it, and it was just getting petulant. And by the end, I think GP was like, I'm not gonna have an argument with you on the radio. Like, there's no point. I don't think there was any. I think there was any saving that. So, is it indicative of a Max Verstappen that is looking to leave the team? A lot of people have been like, I've seen a lot of discussion that Max is clearly not happy. I think he's not happy with the car. He's really struggling with the car. And maybe I've said, this is the opportunity Toto's got to wine and dine Max after tonight, after today's festivities, and be like, Mercedes can give you what you want. But look, Max, I think that was. People saying, it's disrespectful, whatever, right? I think Max and GP, they understand each other, they get it, but there is no way Max was operating at his best by getting so irate. Do I think he was getting so irate because of iRacing? No, I think he was getting so irate because he's got this big upgrade on the car and it feels horrible, and he's not able to get the performance that he wants, and he's getting, he's not able to catch the McLarens. And he's having to drive it at 100%. Surely, I think that might be the reason, Crofty. Not that he was up till 3 playing iRacing like he does most weekends. Maybe. Like, maybe that's more of the issue than, he stayed up a bit past his bedtime. Come on. Behave. But yeah, so we'll see if there's any more to come from this. I don't think there is, personally. I think it's a bit overblown from the whole, look, this is the end of Red Bull and it's all falling apart. But I also think that Max getting that emotional and that wound up, I think that did affect him and his driving, and I think that did contribute to him having his tangle with Lewis, because he just went for an absolute send, the kind of dive bombs that everyone was having to. I see a lot of Max Verstappen fans having to go at Lando Norris for sending dive bombs in Austria. Well, what the hell was Max doing against Lewis? Come on. Dive bombs are fine, but sometimes they don't pay off, and it didn't pay off for Max today. So, yeah. Anyway, on to the other balls that are red, the balls that are blue. Anyway, right, so great turnaround from the team to get Yuki's car fixed, out, and delivered P9. One stop was the correct strategy. Daniel Ricciardo, though, wow. Yeah. Whew. Not good. Not good from the blue balls. So obviously after the race he was fuming, and the context of the situation right now does matter because Daniel knows there's an opportunity at the Red Bull seat. The whole reason he's gone back to this team is to get that seat. And if he'd stayed out, I think he would have had a better finish. He feels like he'd have had a better finish, probably maybe a top 10 finish. In clean air, he was pulled in and put into traffic, DRS train, just when he got some clean air. And I think that the context of the situation contributes for why Daniel was so wound up at the end, so frustrated. And he said like he was biting his tongue because that's a huge chance for him to, really showcase to Christian. And I'm sure Christian and Daniel can look at the performances and Christian will realise that Daniel was kind of stiffed over by the team in that strategy call. But I just think the optics of Daniel finishing 12th and Yuki 9th is not going to help Daniel's, push to get into that Red Bull. And it shouldn't have been that much of a gap between the two of them because Daniel was, driving very well. So, yes, tough one to take for Daniel. Again, great on Yuki's side. Great turnaround of the car to get that fixed. But Daniel really did get stiff, didn't he? But remains to be seen whether what is Spa going to be his last race in a Racing Bulls before he jumps into the Red Bull? Who knows, right? The rumour mill seems to change on a daily basis for that one. Mercedes, again, I think Lewis delivered an exceptional race performance. I think he defended well against Max. And, to make the hard tyre work at the end, very impressive. Got the P3. Again, there's no doubt in Lewis's credentials over a race distance. If George hadn't cocked up, which again was partly on him because he didn't set a good enough banker lap, but then also Mercedes didn't fuel George for the whole of Q1, like right to the end, so he had to come in early when the track was at its quickest, and therefore he just got bumped out. And, who knows where George would have qualified. See, George got pole in 22. Lewis got pole in 23. So Mercedes have to take their share of responsibility for George's struggles on Saturday. And his recovery drive, he was expecting to be... He literally said it in post-race, he was like, Checo was actually quicker than we thought he was going to be based off his, his recent form. So he ended up P8 in the end, did George. And... not a great weekend from his side. But again, I think Lewis kind of maximised what he could have done. 200 podiums now. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? 200 podiums for Lewis Hamilton. First driver to ever. Another record. Another milestone, I guess. He already had, obviously, the most podiums, but another milestone for Lewis. So, very impressive drive from him. And, look, as much as Mercedes weren't as quick as maybe they have been relative to, they were more on Ferrari terms, in more balanced with Ferrari in terms of pace. They still seem to be unlocking stuff going forward. So, well done, Mercedes. And finally, the last team we have to talk about is the Papayans. Okay. Right, 54 minutes in. Finally, we talk about McLaren. Oh, McLaren. Well, this is the beauty of doing this live on YouTube. And again, don't forget to like the stream and subscribe. Do both. Make sure you're subscribed. So you see more of these going forward. It's that I can poll you. I can get your opinions. So, how should I word this? So, if you were Lando, would you have given Oscar the position back? I know there's more to get into than that. But in case you weren't fully engrossed, so obviously going into that final pit stop, Oscar and Lando are on the hards. They're comfortable. Oscar again had his little foray off of the track where he kind of lost it in the quick S's, but then got it back, carried on, managed to open that gap back up to Lando a little bit. It was about 2.5, 3 seconds, I want to say, when Lando came in. But obviously they got the gap. A fairly significant gap to Lewis in P3. And McLaren, which I think, objectively, logically, you're looking at it, right? You got a 1-2. So you just think McLaren, right? You got 1-2. And by pitting the car in second first, you are doing more to kind of protect them from the guy in P3. So obviously McLaren were worried about Lewis, which, what happened in Silverstone? They worried about Lewis too much and then put Lando on the wrong tyre because of it. They were worried about Lewis again, and once again this made them make a very weird decision, which was to essentially undercut Oscar with Lando. Now, the reason it's a weird decision is because then you're relying on your driver to be like, can you concede the lead to your teammate? Because even though we chose to undercut you back ahead of Oscar, because then when Oscar pitted, Lando had an extra lap of fresh rubber, could recover the gap, get ahead, and then Oscar comes out, he's behind Lando Norris, and then you're relying on Lando to be like, of course, Oscar, come by. I'll say goodbye to my second ever win in Formula 1. McLaren could have just, again, they had enough of a buffer, ended up about 15 seconds clear of Lewis Hamilton. So them worrying about Lewis caused them to make a weird call again. And it turns out they didn't have to worry about Lewis. They could have, again, butterfly effect, who knows, right? But by pitting Oscar first, Oscar would have essentially got the undercut on Lando, but he was already ahead, so he would have just opened up that gap to Lando even more. And there would have been no discussion. Oscar would have won his first Grand Prix. It would have been great vibes. It would have been amazing. McLaren 1-2. Oscar got the job done at the start, got ahead of Lando, stayed ahead. Amazing. Incredible. No negativity at all. Just all good. Just all loveliness. That's not what happened. That is not what happened. Right. Poll. Interesting. 580 of you voted. Come on, everyone, get in the vote. Get in the poll. Get in the poll. Get in the poll. You lot. Now, I don't know if this is just you're like 50-50. If you were Lando, would you have given Oscar the position back? 50-50. Well, again, look. The clanger is on McLaren because they should never have allowed this to happen. I can understand the logic as to why. Of course, there was logic. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it, right? They wouldn't have pitted Lando first if there wasn't a stream of logic that would justify that decision. However, they worried too much about another team, and that has created this whole issue where, wow. The team radios were crazy. Now, obviously, I've already done a video talking about in Silverstone how the communication between Lando and Will Joseph was wrong and it was not good. And in that instance, it was trying to lean on Lando too much and not being decisive enough. In this instance, bit of indecisiveness in terms of being to Lando like, oh, just give him back the position whenever you want, which is like, okay, why are you giving Lando that? Just tell him to give the position back straight away. Because you know what, for me, right, if you're going to do that, all right, box Lando early to defend the second place so you get a 1-2, right? But then tell Lando, and I think Lando would have been more receptive to this, tell Lando, right, we've done this to protect your second place. Give Oscar back the place. The only reason you're ahead of him is because of the undercut, right? Which we've orchestrated to protect a 1-2. Give him back the place, and then you're free to race. McLaren have said this before. They are free to race. They're free to go wheel to wheel. And that's giving... Right, okay. Lando, if you want to go... And he seemed to be quicker in that final stint, Lando did. So... give your driver, demonstrate trust in your driver and be like, right, Lando, give him the position back straight away so you're only Oscar was 3 seconds behind Lando, I want to say 3, maybe 2.5 when he came out after that undercut had been done. and then just be like, right, Lando, like you're free to race, but also you're free to just hold position and just get the 1-2, and Oscar gets his first win ever in F1, like you got in Miami. Give that to. Instead, it creates this situation where you're like asking Lando to give away a win, which goes against all of like the. Like Lando fought so long and had this no wins, just like lobbed at him for so long about bottling all these wins. Finally gets it in Miami, then through a bunch of, Canada probably should have been a win. Silverstone definitely should have been a win. Like, Lando's in this position, and then you're asking him, oh, actually, you've got to give it back. Like, why put... It just didn't seem worth it to put your driver in that circumstance. And from Lando, watching the race, I was like, bro, it's not worth it. It's like, in the grand scheme of things, it's not worth it. It's not worth hanging on. Because this is what I'm going to talk about in my video, right? This all comes down to, is there still a Drivers' Championship happening? Right, 84 points between Lando and Max before this race, after 12 of 24, halfway through the season. 84-point gap between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. If that gap was 44 points, okay? If that gap was 24 points, if that gap was 4 points, okay? Everyone's got their own line, but like, if the gap's 200 points, it's championship done. Driver championship done, right? It doesn't matter who finishes ahead of who, right? You're not beating Max you're not winning the Drivers' Championship. No one really cares about any Drivers' Championship position apart from P1. Really. For all the other teams, it's just Constructors. That's all that actually really matters. When you're at the front, winning the Drivers' Championship gets more eyeballs. People care. The fans care more about the Drivers' Championship than Constructors, right? So there's kind of... At the front, those two things are weighed very strongly, whereas at the back and in the middle, for everyone else, it's just the Constructors really that matters. So, 84 points. And again, when I did my video, right, saying about, oh, we've finally got a championship battle on, that's when it was about 38 points between Leclerc and Verstappen after 7 races. And the top comment is that it's far-fetched. So, and going into it, like, I don't think there is a Drivers' Championship battle going on. Even now. Even if Lando had kept hold of P1, his gap to Max would be 69 points. Nice. He didn't. So therefore, it's 76 points. Even if it was 69 points, with 11 races to go, plus 3 sprints, I still don't think there is a realistic... Is there a mathematical Drivers' Championship? Of course there is. But I mean, mathematically, like, Logan Sargent can still win it. Like, realistically, is there a Drivers' Championship battle going on? No. Constructors' Championship? Absolutely. 51 points. But it doesn't matter what order, like Lando and Oscar, they're both getting points from McLaren. So, from a Constructors' point of view, 100% the right choice is to, for the goodwill of the team and the environment, and for Oscar's confidence and for the good vibes, it's that Oscar wins the race because he deserved to win the race, because the only reason Lando was ahead was because of the undercut. The only reason Lando was ahead was because of the undercut. Oscar got the move done into turn 1, held the position, and actually opened that gap pretty significantly until we made that mistake. So, like, I don't think anyone can begrudge looking at this and looking at McLaren and being like, well, there's not a Drivers' Championship battle going on here. So all of our talk before in these Sunday briefings and these Friday briefings and whatever is about the team and maximising the points for the team, and not about Lando getting more points than Oscar and getting, not about team orders. It's just maximising the points for the team. And yes, of course, Max could fall off a cliff, right, for the rest of this year, and Lando could miss out on the title by less than 7 points. That is possible. That is possible. Okay? And then you would look back at this and be like, what an absolute howler. But like realistically, the chance of that is so small. And like no, like going into this weekend again with hindsight, Max finishing P5 and only scoring 10 points. Lando could have scored 25 and 15-point gap, 15-point delta. Lando only scored 18, so it's an 8-point delta. That's to me where, you know, no one is looking at this weekend, even after Lando and Oscar put it P1 and 2. No one is looking at this championship now and being like, there's a driver's championship going on here. Before this Grand Prix anyway. Even after Oscar and Lando. Because Max almost took pole again. Like he was less than half a tenth off of pole anyway. So it's just the way that, again, it's the indecisiveness of being like, right, okay, what we've done is we've put you ahead. And Lando, we've put you in a position where you have to give up a lead. Okay? So if you want Lando to do that, I don't think the best way of doing it is to be like, oh, Lando, give the position back whenever you want. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Like, be like, right, Lando, the only reason you're ahead is because of the undercut. This was all part of the plan to defend the 1-2 for the team. Please return the position to Oscar and bring it home. You're free to fight, but this 1-2 is really important to us as a team. This will be our first 1-2 since 2021. And I think trust your driver. Trust Lando to... And you know what? If Lando wants to fight Oscar for the win, like, I think that's fine. I think that's fine. But yeah, I don't know. It's just the way that McLaren will, oh, Lando, save your tyres. Lando, I know you'll do the right thing. Like, this... McLaren had no faith. And Lando didn't want to give the position back. But of course he didn't. Of course he didn't. What did you expect? Of course a racing driver does not want to give away a win. Like, even to their teammate. Of course he doesn't. He's got one ever. Everyone's got no wins, bottle job all the time, always bottles it. Like, of course that stuff affects Lando. Of course that. Like, and would Max have given up the win? Crofty was saying, it's not built into these drivers to give up wins for anyone or anything, right? They just want to take the opportunities to present themselves. So why would you, like, it's so naive from McLaren and just the way it was handled and just like basically just lying, just coming up with stuff, being like, oh, Lando, you're going on the tyres more than Oscar. I don't think that was true. I don't think that was true at all. I just think they were trying to come up with other ways of saying, Lando, slow down and give Oscar the position. And do it now. And like, this is an order. Do it. Like, oh, Lando, please, like, sorry, that's not going to work. That's not going to work, McLaren. They have to do better than this. Like, it's so. That's what I mean. They're not ready. Like, and I don't know if this is like a. Look, I'm not gonna. It's a team decision. Okay, it's coming through Will Joseph, and Will Joseph's catching a lot of heat, right? And it's not. He is part of a broader team, a strategy team, and he's the one who's communicating it to Lando, right? And he's going to get a lot of flack, and he's been getting a lot of flack, right? And again, criticizing someone's performance, you don't need to make it personal, right? And some people take it way too far. He and the performance team deserve a lot of criticism for the way they handled this. And, you know, I think some criticism to Lando for, like, longing it out. But again, like, the job of the driver is to deliver and win, and it's built into their DNA and their psyche to just go, like, take every opportunity. And where Lando's missed so many opportunities, you can't begrudge. Like, it's like Lando can't win. Like, if he wins it, he's like, oh, this selfish, and he's taken away Oscar's win, and the team are going to be annoyed with him and all that. And if he concedes, then people are like, oh, he's not built like Verstappen or Schumacher or Hamilton. He's not got that, you know, he's not a proper driver. He's not going to be a world champion. Like, but McLaren are the one who not knowingly put themselves into that position, put their drivers into that position. And it takes the shine off of Oscar's win. It does. It just does. You could, like, it was so awkward at the end. Honestly, going into that race, I wanted Oscar to win that race so much. And when it came to the end, I was just like, yeah, cool. Like, Oscar won. Like, it completely ruined that moment. Like, for me, as someone, I'm a fan of Oscar. Like, I think he's great. He is quickly becoming one of the drivers that I like the most, right? And I want him to do well. And you could just see how it just took so much out of it. For him personally, for the team, for this 1-2, that again should be a huge deal to McLaren. All just because they just made bad decisions as a team. Yeah, it's bad. Look, and Lando post race, you know, I think Lando was very, like, you know, political and in terms of his answers, like Oscar deserved the win. I lost the race into turn 1. He should have won it. Like, blah blah blah, and like, who knows? Maybe Lando would have always given back the position. The way he was speaking on the radio sounds like he really didn't want to, and of course he really didn't want to. But would he have actually crossed that finish line ahead of Oscar Piastri? Would he have actually done that after the team were very like, this is an order, return the position to Oscar. You've only got it because we undercut you to defend the 1-2 for the team, play the team game, and return the position, please. Boom, done. You've said it. You don't need to, like, just to keep going on and on and on and on and on, and just coming up with these, like, you know, oh, you got to manage the tyres more, blah blah blah. Like, just be assertive. Be assertive with your driver. Yeah, it's yeah, it's mad. I don't know. That's how I would have played it. I would have been like, give him the position back. This is an order, right? Give him the position back. You're free to fight. You've not the only reason you've obtained that position is because we're defending the 1-2. Bosh, done. Who knows? Maybe Zach would have got on the radio if he was there, but obviously he was at the IndyCar. Shout out Colton Hurt, by the way. My guy. Race winner in Toronto. Sorry, spoiler alert. So yeah, that's my piece on McLaren, but I will be doing a full video. I've already scripted a bunch, and I'm going to continue doing that. Just, well, these thoughts are fresh in my mind. You're pretty much split down the middle. If you were Lando, would you have given Oscar the position back? 49% say yes, 51% say no. McLaren should have never given him that choice. But there you go. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate you all taking the time. Thank you for any super chats as well, by the way. Thank you, Flea Coney, for the super chat. With Yuki now on 8 points finishes compared to Daniel's 3 this season, wouldn't the consistency of Yuki throughout the season be appealing to Red Bull? What I would say is what matters to Red Bull is that the driver they get in can drive this RB20, which has a very specific way it needs to be driven. And I think that is the important thing to Red Bull. Not who's been more consistent in a race in Bulls, not who's a rookie and who isn't. It's that. That's what they need, because it didn't work with Gasly, it didn't work with Albon, it's not worked with Perez. That's the important thing to them. That's what they'll make their decision based on, not who deserves it more. And that's the position Red Bull find themselves in, because they've got a very tricky car. Simple. Thank you, Robert, as well. Hi, me and Oliver H. Holmes. So I'm thinking that was a name that's going to trip me up. I like the action today. Well, thank you, Robert. Thank you, Oliver. Glad you enjoyed. Thank you, Zach, as well, for the other super chat. I think we're good. I think we're done. Thank you all. Again, congratulations, Australia. Another race winner. Mark Webber, Daniel Ricciardo, Alan Jones. Other Australians who have won in F1. Who am I missing? Who am I missing? Probably some Brabham, Jack Brabham. Yes. Obviously Bruce is Kiwi. And obviously Oscar Piastri. Dub. No, Bottas might try and be Australian, but he's not. Right, thank you all for watching. I do really appreciate it. And yeah, main video tomorrow. Don't forget to like the stream if you're here on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter at TOMMO'S. And rating, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. And, well, video tomorrow. / today. It's midnight UK time anyway. Bye, everyone.